Given the recent love for Pokémon stuff that simply lets you watch them hang out in different environments, it's astonishing that it took this long for Pokémon Pokopia to emerge. It marries two ideas that probably should have been smashed together a long time ago: life sims and Pokémon. Koei Tecmo's Omega Force was the right studio to snatch the idea up, too, after its success working on Dragon Quest Builders 2 with Square Enix and its ongoing positive reputation for Dynasty Warriors and Nintendo crossovers. Given all this, I came into Pokémon Pokopia having built up skyscraper high hopes, and I'm happy to say it exuberantly met me at the top. In Pokopia, you play as a Ditto that has transformed into the roughly human shape of their former trainer, who is now missing. Ditto is released unexpectedly into a Kanto region that looks quite different from what you might remember in other games. You start in the ruins of what you'll very quickly recognize as Fuchsia City, but drought-stricken and with buildings reduced to rubble. A friendly Tangrowth posing as a Pokémon professor is there to greet you. And together, the two of you undertake a 40-plus-hour effort to restore the region to its former glory in hopes of attracting both people and Pokémon back home. This turns out to be a pretty compelling premise, both in the mystery you'll slowly uncover about what happened to the world, as well as in how that recovery ties closely to your actual minute-to-minute tasks. You'll start by rebuilding natural Pokémon habitats, such as patches of tall grass or flowers, which will in turn attract new Pokémon to come live within them. But eventually, you'll construct whole buildings and furniture pieces as you build out your little community. As a Ditto, you have the ability to transform into other Pokémon, allowing you to use their abilities to restore the land. For instance, a Squirtle will teach you Water Gun early on, which allows you to water the dry ground and bring back dead trees, bushes, grass, and flowers. From a Bulbasaur, Ditto learns Leafage, allowing them to raise up new tall grass from previously empty ground. Rock Smash breaks rocks. Cut chops up foliage, and so on. Much later, you'll be able to turn into a Lapras to surf across water, and finally, a Dragonite will teach you to fly, well, glide through the air. This is where a lot of Pokopia's personality shines, as it really goes all in on reminding you that you are a Ditto, a blobby pink creature that can shapeshift into anything. Ditto gains a shell and a Squirtle tail when it uses Water Gun and green vine arms for leafage. It can suck items into its inventory in bulk by slurping them up into its mouth, Kirby style, effectively absorbing them until it needs to spit one back out again. If you fall from a great height, never fear, you're a Ditto. You just blop into a pink goo for a moment and then reform into your human shape. There is so much attention to detail in Pokopia's animations and its marriage of mechanics and character, and all these little touches combine to keep me locked into the universe and fantasy of being a Ditto dressed as a person, glooping about this ruined world. I didn't really care about Ditto before, but after Pokopia, I love this little weirdo. That level of detail extends to your Pokémon friends, all of whom are given colorful personalities and plenty of things to do once they settle into their new homes. You can give them gifts to raise their comfort levels and affection for Ditto, which will often result in them giving you gifts in turn. They'll invite you to play games or give you little quizzes on Pokémon facts. Pokémon will just have fun on their own, too. You can watch them react to items you leave out in the world, play tag with one another, or even make friends with their neighbors. Each Pokémon also has different abilities that dictate how they interact with the world. You'll frequently want to enlist Pokémon like Scyther to chop wood for you, or Piplup to wash away sewage, which is a mostly great way to highlight the strengths of Pokémon that don't normally get the spotlight. I I say mostly because I was a bit irritated later on by how much trekking back and forth between areas I had to do to figure out which Pokemon I left all my iron ore with or who was converting my clay into bricks. But largely it was a positive that almost every Pokemon had a genuinely cool purpose. Between all that and the presence of a sizable Pokédex, I found myself very motivated to design increasingly complex habitats to attract rarer and rarer monsters in hopes of filling out every last entry. As more Pokemon return to the world, they'll start to want more than just a patch of grass to lounge in. They've got needs. Pokopia is a game of little chores, and every one of those chores provides a satisfactory dopamine rush as you watch a new building appear or a patch of previously barren landscape fill out with cute creatures doing adorable activities. The loop was so engrossing that I did not once mind the absence of any combat, something present in Dragon Quest Builders, but for pretty obvious story reasons, not a part of Pokopia. It doesn't need it. One minor issue that tripped me up, however, was the storage in Pokopia. Ditto has an inventory that can be expanded over time, and you can also construct storage boxes both small and large to put more items in. This works for a while, but because there's no unified storage, by the end of Pokopia I was having trouble remembering what box and what region I had put that certain item I now needed. Frequently, when a quest called for something specific, I had to fast travel between multiple regions, through multiple loading screens, then look through multiple boxes just to find it. I understand wanting to limit storage during Pokopia's story mode so that you don't haul enormous quantities of junk from place to place and are instead forced to use each new environment to solve your problems. But the post-game really needed some sort of unified, interconnected storage box between all the regions into which I can just dump 20 stacks of 99 sand. As Pokopia progresses, the dozens of little chores slowly evolve into bigger, more grandiose projects. There are 4 main story regions to explore and reconstruct, each with different habitats, monsters, and themes to build around. Pokopia's actual construction mechanics will be familiar to anyone who's played these cube-based building games before. You break up the blocks of the environment, collect them in your inventory, craft other blocks out of gathered resources, then stack cubes, make structures, and fill them with decorative items. I unfortunately suspect that savvier builders than myself may not be thrilled by the building controls. I frequently found it difficult to position blocks exactly where I wanted them, due to limitations on where and how I could move them. There's an awesome post-game transformability that improves the experience quite a bit, but even with that on, I was wishing for just a touch more precision. The story regions of Pokopia have loads of ruined building foundations and other suggestions of spaces that you could start from, or you can tear it all down and begin anew. It's a healthy, enjoyable mix of freedom and guidance that satisfied both the desire to make anything I wanted and the need, at times, to just get a dang house up and move on. As someone who's not great at making aesthetically pleasing spaces, I was grateful for the presence of building kits that, when filled with resources and assigned some worker Pokemon, would become pre-made structures that actually look nice, allowing me to skip most large-scale manual construction if I chose to. And then there's Pallet Town, a bonus non-story region explicitly set aside for players to build from scratch. It's so massive, I have no idea how to even begin turning it into a proper metropolis. There's enough space to build huge, absurd sculptures like folks have been doing in Minecraft for years, or get together with friends and construct an entire Pokemon-filled world with multiple towns. I'm stoked to see what the real artists get up to in there. One of the most surprising and wonderful elements in Pokopia is the story. So much of my delight in Pokopia is in wandering through this ruined version of Kanto, collecting notes and logs explaining what happened to the world, then stumbling into locations that will be recognizable to longtime Pokemon fans like me. Walking into a ruin and feeling the gut punch as I realized where I was and what happened here really hit. And Pokopia's capitalization on that feeling is pristine. I'd be remiss not to mention the excellent soundtrack as well, which sprinkles in familiar melodies in exactly the right dose. Then twist those tunes around in a reminder that the world is not what it once was. Fans familiar with the original games or their remakes might get more out of this than those who haven't played them. But I think that the environmental storytelling, the slow drip of clues, and the contrast between the tragic fate of this world and Pokopia's cheery tone should be able to hook even those with a less intimate knowledge of the setting. Pokémon Pokopia is a real treat, an enjoyable building and town simulator that capitalizes on the charming personalities of its monsters in a way that appeals to both the creative and collector alike. It's packed with fun things to do and worthy rewards for doing them, and strikes a healthy balance between freedom and suggestion in its building mechanics, despite a few precision nitpicks. All of this is housed in an adorable adventure through an interesting and surprisingly deep setting that presses all the nostalgia buttons for longtime fans. And it all shines especially bright in its lovable protagonist's blobby pink hands.
Reviews director Tom Marks here with Rebekah Valentine to talk a little bit more about her Pokemon Pokopia review, but then also just tastes in general. I'm sure you've seen, Reb has been our Pokemon reviewer for a while now. You did Pokemon Legends, both Zeta A and Arceus. You did Scarlet and Violet and all of its DLCs. You did Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, and then also just other RPGs and general stuff beyond that. But you're a big Pokemon fan, and we love having you on to talk about Pokemon. We did that at the end of your review of Zeta A. We talked a lot about your Pokemon tastes. So if you're interested in that and hearing about Reb's Pokemon tastes, generally speaking, you can go and check out the end of that review. But let's also talk about sort of the other half of Pokopia, which is a life sim buildy game. I don't know, it falls into this weird category of like, it's not quite Stardew, it's not quite Animal Crossing, it's a little bit of a mix of all of these things. So just tell me, like, what do you like about these sort of cozy games, and what are some of your favorites there?
I tend to be very picky about cozy games. There was a period in my life where I started getting, I got really into Stardew Valley like everybody else, and then I think I got targeted by a lot of pitches from people trying to get me to play their cozy games, and I realized that actually I'm very precise about what I like. Like, just because a thing is cozy does not mean I'm interested in it. I obviously really liked Animal Crossing New Horizons. I did actually play a little bit of Dragon Quest Builders 2. I didn't play a ton of it because I never quite got into Dragon Quest. Series is great, just never had the opportunity to get into those massively long games. So I think the aesthetics didn't quite appeal to me, but the mechanics were really cool. But I generally like, I don't know, I really like having these sort of cohesive, interesting worlds that have some sort of interesting, like, through line and interesting story, as opposed to just, oh, you've got some cute neighbors, go be friends with them. Like, I need there to be something else that's, like, really compelling about the world, because I'm actually terrible at building things. I'll do it. I mean, I did it in Pokopia. I built all these terrible little houses out of random bricks that I had, but I don't have a great aesthetic sense. So I really need there to be something that kind of pulls me along, whether that's a story or some really interesting character, or maybe a really interesting other mechanic going on that keeps me involved.
And it sounds like Pokopia had a lot of that. It had all of that, basically.
Yes, absolutely.
So let's talk about the Pokemon side of this, which is Pokemon spin-offs are nothing new, right? Pokemon has been doing all sorts of genres, from puzzle games and match threes to things like this over the years. So, like, what are some of your favorite Pokemon spin-offs along the way? Because this has ended up being, I think right now, as of now, it's like the highest rated Pokemon game, period, on Metacritic, overall on average. So clearly this one has resonated with folk, but I'm curious about some others you like.
Yeah, Pokemon spin-offs are so hit or miss. What a long, weird history spin-offs have had. I actually did our review for New Pokemon Snap a couple years ago, and I loved New Pokemon Snap. I also loved the original Pokemon Snap. I think those games are really cool and very unique. Like, there's not a lot of games where you're riding in a little cart taking photos of things. I also really liked Pokemon Go, like everybody else. I thought that game was really interesting and novel, and I loved getting out in my neighborhood. I don't play it currently just because I fell off like a lot of people did. But it's still really, really cool, and I have fond memories of playing that. I also played Pokemon Sleep. I think I'm like the only person who really got into Pokemon Sleep.
Is play the right word?
Yeah, actually, and that's kind of why I had to put it away, because I had like purchased the subscription and I kept opening my phone in the middle of the day to like feed the Snorlax berries over and over again, and eventually it was just a little bit too time consuming. But I really enjoyed the adrenaline rush of waking up in the morning and seeing what Pokemon had shown up. That was pretty fun. There have also been some pretty terrible ones. There was a period in like the kind of Wii U-ish era where there were just a lot of really bad Pokemon spin-offs going around. So I'm glad we seem to be busting out of that.
What do you think is the secret sauce of a Pokemon spin-off? Because they have gone to so many different places, and obviously the Pokemon need to be there and be fun, but like, this one doesn't have combat, and you say very clearly it really didn't need it, right? And so what do you think it does need? What do you think a Pokemon game, is it just charm above all else?
I think it needs to deliver on the fantasy of really living in a world inhabited by Pokemon. And I kind of nod to this at the beginning of the review, where I talk about movies like Detective Pikachu or even New Pokemon Snap, where, you know, they let you enter into this sort of universe and see what it would be like to just look around and see Pokemon woven into the fabric of daily life. Detective Pikachu has that fantastic scene where it's panning around the city and shows like all these Pokemon just engaged in different city life activities. New Pokemon Snap obviously has Pokemon in the wild just doing their thing. And Pokopia, again, very unusual setting, the way it's presented, but what you get to do is you get to run around this world and find all of these relics of very familiar things, if you play Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow, but also see how Pokemon interact with them, interact with the world, and just exist. I think people like me who grew up with Pokemon and have this like deep nostalgic love for it, you know, we remember playing Red and Blue and Yellow and having to fill in the gaps in our imagination of, you know, what the Pokemon world would look like and what it would feel like to be and exist in that fantasy world. And so actually having that portrayed in this really like loving, precise, like very specific, like all these specific interactions and little details, having that portrayed so well, I think is the key to whatever Pokemon spinoff you're trying to make.
Could somebody who's just like an Animal Crossing fan or just a Stardew fan go into this game and get the same thing out of it? Do you think you really need to be a Pokemon fan to enjoy Pokopia, or could just sort of life sim-y fans in general still get a lot out of it?
I don't think you necessarily need to be an active fan. I do think this game might be kind of hard to get into if you just have zero history with Pokemon. If you have never picked up a game, like, you know, if you're someone who played them as a child and then hasn't touched them since, yeah, Pokopia is going to be great. You're going to have a fantastic time. But if you just have no history or no knowledge basis of this world whatsoever, you might end up a little bit like me with Dragon Quest Builders 2, where I thought, hey, this game's really fun. Not really into Dragon Quest and a lot of the references it's making, and you might just kind of fall off. I think this game is excellent apart from the Pokemon elements. I just think that the Pokemon elements are so tightly woven in with what this game is trying to do that you might just be like sort of vaguely confused, or, you know, honestly not that into the story, because the story is kind of predicated on having some knowledge of what has happened in the history of the Pokemon universe way back when. That said, you might pick this up and love the little guys and decide that now you're a Pokemon fan. I don't think it's a terrible gateway game into Pokemon.
Thank you so much, Reb, for talking with us a little bit more about this, about your tastes and all that jazz. Like I said at the top, if you want more from Reb talking about Pokemon tastes specifically, go check out her review of Pokemon Legends Z to A, where we had a chat at the end of that one about kind of more mainline Pokemon stuff in general and her tastes there. If you want another recent Switch 2 exclusive, check out our review of Mario Tennis Fever. And for everything else, stick with IGN.